Richard, a question for you. You deal with a lot of the community volunteers. How is the police department in Columbia seen by that community of volunteers?
Very well. And we've been trying to, as an organization, our board of directors has been working in the last couple of years to try to become a little more modern. We have established now where we've got all our block captains who have computers at home on email lists. With the help of the city, we now can furnish our volunteers up to date. Twice a month, we furnish them with the latest crime incident reports by beat. And so that they have the latest information of where the burglaries, the car larcenies, and so forth are happening. And if they see it starting to, and it's every 2 weeks, so they can see trends. And if they see things happening in their neighborhoods, in their subdivision, that means more increased crime. Why, that gives them a heads up to be more, and to the block captains to alert their members that here's what's happening. And so these are the kinds of things we're trying to do, and we're very appreciative of our new chief who is oriented towards better communications and the things that these two gentlemen were just talking about.
Right. Chief Burton, here's a question from one of our listeners. If the police were out in the community more doing the kind of on-the-street relationship building that you talk about, what impact might that have on things like the numbers that just came out saying that there may or may not be racial profiling going on from the police department? Would that potentially mitigate some of that?
I think that what we have to keep in mind is that every community has a very small percentage of people who are engaging in crime and criminal activity. The vast majority of our citizens are law-abiding citizens. And when the police are out contacting law-abiding citizens in a non-confrontational, no pressure, like Nathan was saying a minute ago, the man in the front yard mowing his lawn, meeting a police officer in a positive manner. So many times, in fact, almost all the time, when the police encounter a citizen for something negative, they're writing a citation, they're taking a report where the person's home was just broken into, their child is missing. I mean, all kinds of negative things. So I think the community starts to look at the police as a bad thing, because when they're there, it's something bad's happening. Somebody's going to jail, like Nathan was talking about. And so we need to, when they're out there, I think that it could have a direct impact on the perception of racial profiling. And police have to understand that in a lot of ways that's justified in certain communities, because that's what that's how we've policed. And so you have segments of the community that feel like they're being singled out. And I think those relationships, those face-to-face relationships that Nathan and I are talking about, would help change that. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it happen in communities. We as the police have to stop looking at certain areas of the city as being more prone to crime. There are law-abiding citizens living there. The vast majority of them are law-abiding, and that's how we need to treat them.
Right. Nathan, sort of a similar question to you in terms of the racial profiling question and what that does to trust in the police department. What does that do within the black community in terms of trusting the police?
Well, I mean, I think it would increase the level of trust. I mean, when I know that, there are some great officers on the Columbia Police Department. And I think that it gives the black community specifically an opportunity to engage with some really incredible, fine officers on the Columbia Police Department. At the same time, it gives the police an opportunity to find out, as Chief Burton says, who's really committing crime, as opposed to someone who is wearing a white T-shirt and some baggy jeans, and they're all kind of hanging out, and you're not exactly sure who's committing those crimes. As you engage in the community and you have these relations with people in the community, I think you get a little bit more knowledgeable of who's really committing crimes, who's really being violent, who's really fighting, as opposed to who's trying to look cool.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions I have for you, Richard, is in terms of this, places where crimes are happening. A lot of the neighborhood watch programs, do they overlap with neighborhoods where a lot of crime is occurring?
Well, of course, that all gets back to establishing a neighborhood watch group, which we encourage with the help of the police department. So if anybody, I'll just take the opportunity to make a pitch. If anybody would like to look into that and see if they could better organize their immediate neighbors into a watch group, why just contact the police department community services unit. And Officer Mike Hayes, with a community services officer, is our liaison, who does our training with the neighborhood watch groups. But in any event, that's what I was saying about the crime incident reports. We can always use, we'd like to see every block in town organized, because we can prove from statistics. One of the things after we get a block organized and trained is we erect a neighborhood watch sign on the street sign post at the corner, the main entrance of that block. And we can show from statistics that though, in other words, criminals go by the path of least resistance. If they've got a choice between burglarizing on a street that's got a neighborhood watch sign and a lot of the streets that don't, they tend to go to the ones that don't, because it just increases their odds of not getting caught.
Right.
And so those are the kinds of things that we can do. But what these two gentlemen are talking about is so important, is developing that relationship. I've met a lot of officers because of my experience with Neighborhood Watch, and almost, I can say 100% of the ones I've met and talked to are fine people. And they're human beings. They've got their, just like anybody else. And if you can get to know the officer that's working your neighborhood and is on that beat, and in a like they said, a non-confrontational way, it's just got to improve relationships.
Yeah. We've got to break in real fast so that we can do a station ID here. You're listening to Intersection, the program of KBIA. I'm Reuben Stern, talking with Columbia's new police chief, Ken Burton, and community organizers Nathan Stevens and Richard Gray. Our topic today is the police and the community. Join the discussion by emailing your thoughts to intersection@kbia.gmail.com. I want to pick up with something you just said, that the police officers are human beings, and we've all kind of talked about that, and shift gears a little bit and talk about the other side of being a human being, which means we all have foibles and flaws, and talking about what happens when those come to light and what the citizens can do. And you probably guess where I'm going here. There's been a lot of conversation about a citizens review board and what we do to investigate incidents when the police are doing things that people might not approve of. And I just wanted to start with you, Chief Burton, and talk about what are your views on that? What is the legitimate way for citizens to interact with the police in their watchdog role to make sure that the police are doing what they say they're supposed to be doing?
I think 18 months ago, the establishment of the Professional Standards Unit was a major step in that direction. And it's proving, I think, that citizens have access to an investigative unit that can look into how the police have done things, and how it helps us is that we learn to train better. We learn to it gives us an opportunity to get rid of bad apples. Every organization has them. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, is going to do wonders for some of those relationships. You mentioned the review board. I have not found a single Columbia police officer who is against the review board. They are very positive about it. They recognize that the community wants a review board and that it's coming. It's my hope as the police chief that a few years down the road, after I've been here a little while, that we find that the review board is not having much work. Or the citizens say, you know what, we can disband this thing because we've established the trust in the community where we trust our police department to do the right thing. And that when they discover a bad apple, that bad apple is going to be cut off the tree, and we trust all of our police officers to do the right thing. Right. That's my hope. Okay. Whether or not we get there remains to be seen.
Uh-huh.